Hello. To today's question, it's a very broad question, but it's about handling conflict management and conflict resolution for your teams and your employees. Of course, the benefits of this topic is that you'll probably, if you take this video to heart, it's an opportunity to reduce employee turnover, increase retention, have employees be more satisfied, increase productivity. I see it in the companies that I work and have consulted for in giving them this advice and coaching. It's really more about coaching than advice. So I can give you all this content, to be honest with you, but it's really in the practice and in the nuances and the complexities that you really learn how to increase this for your team. So I do encourage you to watch this video, but I have to say the caveat, and it's quite a truthful caveat, that the skills that I'm talking about here are very attractive, but they only come with some practice and some distinction, some distinctions that you need to have for the nuances and the complexities that are in your team, that are inherent in almost every team. So I'm giving you an oversimplified version, but it usually helps in order to get an overview of this. So there are a couple of stages in resolving the conflict. So, say for example, someone comes to you with a conflict, or you see a conflict arising in a team setting or a meeting setting, and the first thing to do is really just listen people out. Now, you don't want it to go on too long, but you do want to give them an opportunity to voice whatever's going on, whether it's two people having a conflict or you having a conflict with someone else. You want to give them an opportunity to just spew their emotions, so to speak, or to express what's going on, what's the conflict, etc. The second thing to do is to try and identify what really is the conflict, or what is the problem. See, a problem or a conflict only exists if there are two things. It's very simple logic, but two things have to exist. One, there has to be a certain objective or objectives that need to be met. And then there are certain challenges or obstacles that you need to go over or handle in order to get to the objective. So you want to distinguish both the objectives as well as the challenges. Because if you don't distinguish them, then it's very difficult to resolve it. You're going to go in circles, and it then becomes a highly dysfunctional conversation. And you don't want to have that. You don't want to go over and over the same ground. You want to agree what the problem is. So I hope that makes sense. Next stage is to help people identify what they want from you in terms of a facilitator or someone who can help resolve the thing, whether you're resolving a conflict between two other people or resolving it between you and someone else. So, and by the way, this also pertains to if you're resolving a conflict with someone higher than you, like if you're the employee and some team manager's coming to you with a conflict. So the next stage, like I said, is to identify how you can help, what role you can play, and a couple of options. One is you can say, well, John, I understand you have this conflict with me, but what would you like me to do? Do you want me to brainstorm with you to come up with some solutions, or do you want to just vent, or do you, truthfully, are you just committed to just throwing the drama out and leaving it unresolved, which I just want to be clear about. And some people will say yes, to that. It's quite remarkable, and you know where they stand at least. The next is, do you want some coaching or do you want some straight advice, etc., etc. So there are many ways to go with this, and I'm not going to go through all these trees and branches, but that's important to distinguish, is what route you want to go. And then, typically at some point, even if someone wants to vent, you want to give them an opportunity just to vent for a while. But, you want to identify some kind of time limit, And sometimes I'll say, well, I get that. I get this is really intense for you, John, as an example. And, how long, do you think about 45 minutes, 30 minutes would be sufficient for you to express yourself? I promise to listen. I know that may sound mechanical what I'm trying to do here, but I promise you what I'm trying to do is just set a reasonable time frame so it serves you and for me as well. So, would 45 minutes work, or how long do you need to vent? And some people will say, well, probably not too long. I just need to probably just say it. and then you just listen. And you get them, and if it goes on too long, if it goes on beyond 45 minutes for sure, then you got to ask the question. The question is, well, again, the same question: how would you want me to support you in resolving this? Do you want to brainstorm? Do you want some coaching? Do you want some advice? Do you want to actually debate this, etc., etc.? What are the options here? Which option do you prefer? And but at some level, to resolve this and have you involved in it, you have to come in as a coach or a facilitator. And you got to learn the art and science of coaching if you want to really be a good mentor or a good leader or a good manager even. You got to learn the art and science of coaching. There's just no way around that. You have to. And time and time again, when I see situations like this, no matter how logical it is, people just don't want to be resolved unless you put on a coach's hat and you bring in a certain kind of different conversation which can probably move things a lot faster, a lot more sooner. So what does it mean to have a coaching conversation? It means a couple of things. One is, well, first you got to identify the problem and the challenge and the obstacle, right? The second, you want to identify how you want him to support you, and that's fine. The third, and gets into coaching, is to identify just what happened, like just the facts, as opposed to the opinions. So a lot of people have opinions and facts collapsed, or meaning the same. So they'll say, well, he's just being a jerk, and they think that's a fact. And you'll be surprised, even some of the most intelligent academic people will say the same thing. But you got to delve deeper and go, well, what actually happened? Tell me what he said, or what he did, and what you did, what you said, or what he said after that. Tell it to me in that fashion so I can understand. Because you want to get the facts first, separate from the opinions. Because you don't want to be hooked by the opinions yourself. You want to just look at the facts of what happened. Okay? Then you want to ask him, okay, what are the opinions about what happened? What's your perception of what happened? Well, I think just because he said that he didn't have time for me, I think he's a jerk. Okay? Now a lot of times, just distinguishing those two things may really help, because you can go and say, well, that may be your perception. It could be that he's just busy, or it could be that a whole other sort of reasons, or list of reasons could be behind that. So, are you, John, are you willing to look at maybe there's a different perspective? And if it's okay if you're not. I just want to see if you're open to a different perspective. You may say yes or no. But the next step is to look at, based on what you've seen so far, what are the options for resolving the situation. So you want to put it back on them as much as possible. Even though you may have ideas on how to resolve it, you want to put it back on them, because you want to train them to think more than you just come up with a magic answer. So you want to train them to think and put it back on them. Now I know some of you may be going, well, my team members may not respond to that. Believe me, I've seen it all. And this is where the complexities arise, and I understand that. But I have tons of experience doing this, and I know almost anybody who's willing to resolve the situation, you can work with, even if they're reluctant to do so. And you can increase the at-stakeness by asking the question, well, are you committed to resolving this, or are you committed to the drama? And you should let me know right now, because that will have a consequence in how we work together in the future. And that's a very valid and fair question to ask. And if you're unwilling to ask the question, then I assert that you may be putting your attention more on trying to avoid looking bad, or a fear of losing the employee, versus really having an effective team work for you. Now, that doesn't mean you have to force an employee out, but there are ways to work with that. And I ask that you bear with me in this, but you want to get the overall process first and then dig into details like that. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to call me or email me. But it's important, again, like I said, to distinguish between the facts and opinions, and then ask them, what are the options that you want to resolve? Now, he may not, or she may not think of ones right there and then, because sometimes in the heat of the moment you can't. So what I usually tell people to do is, hey, let's take a couple of days break, or maybe a couple of hours break, whatever's appropriate. I want you to think about some options, and then come back. Let's meet. I want you to come back with at least 2 options to resolve this. Even if they're ridiculous options, please come back with 2, at least 2. And there are always at least one. There's always at least one, which is do nothing. That is an option. Okay? But here's the caveat. This is the next part of the homework I give them. I want you to list out, John, what are the pros and cons for each option. So if you do nothing, what are the pros and cons for that? I want you to come back with at least 2 options so we can discuss. And I'll probably have some other options too, and my intention is to resolve this. Are you willing to align with me or work with me to resolve this, within our next meeting? And that's a very important thing to keep asking, because you want to get straight with them and plant in them the idea that, they either resolve this or they're going to continue suffering, or there may be other consequences. And you don't have to be threatening, you just have to be very truthful about it. So those are some of the steps that you can use, and then obviously when they come back, go over the pros and cons, and then look back at them and say, okay, which do you choose to resolve? Which option do you think works the best? Or which options, it could be several options. And then put some accountability and make sure they schedule some activity to do to resolve it based on the options they select. And then hold them to account. Set up a follow-up time to make sure that they take out the actions. So I hope that makes sense for you, and I hope that makes a difference for you. And again, if you have any questions, I understand there are more complexities and nuances, feel free to email me. There's probably a contact information at the bottom of this video, and I look forward to serving you in the future. Take care.